What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Kirsten Potenza, CEO and founder of Pound, the Rockout Workout. You're listening to The Big Green Couch, where I sit down with noisemakers across various industries to discuss different topics, to bring new ideas, fresh perspectives, and practical tips to you, our community. Let's get started. Welcome to a special episode of The Big Green Couch. I have a good friend of mine with me today, Elmo Lovano. He is the founder and CEO of Jammcard, the Music Professionals Network. He is also a professional drummer, producer, and musical director that has worked with Skrillex, Miley Cyrus, Terrace Martin, Juliette Lewis, Christina Perri, Andrew Watt, Alan Stone, Avril Lavigne, and many, many more. Under Elmo's leadership, Jammcard has become a household name in the music industry. Elmo is also known for curating and producing Jammcard's live music event called the Jam Jam. I have personally attended these events, and I can tell you that they are the most authentic, hair-raising, and incredible music events that I've ever been to in my life. They have featured the likes of performances from Ice Cube, Anderson .Paak, Chica, Terrace Martin, Ty Dolla $ign, Kamasi Washington, Judith Hill, George Clinton, Robin Thicke, CeeLo Green, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Jacob Collier, and many more. Elmo is currently executive producing 2 feature documentaries, Trap Jazz and The Immediate Family, and he's the host of the web series How I Got the Gig, Gear Goggles, and VF Jams Live. He genuinely loves people and is deeply focused on modernizing the music industry. Elmo, welcome to the Big Green Couch. The Elmo and Kirsten show.
It's perfect. We only catch up via podcast.
10 years. No, we've done better than that.
2 years.
It's been a while, but
Yeah.
we've known each other, I think, for over 10 years, which is amazing because one of the things that I get sad about living in LA and moving kind of like in high school and then in college is not having friends for long periods of time. And you're definitely one of the longest LA friends for sure.
2009 or 10?
Crazy.
2009 or 10. Yeah, that is crazy. I know for everyone listening that looks up to Kirsten, I knew her when she was a waitress. And I knew her when she was a waitress because I was a waiter at the same time.
Yes. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
That's how we met.
24.
Yes.
No, I tell this to people all the time. Their 24 has like a legacy of people that have gone on to do incredible things with their life. Kelly Wagner, I'm still friends with. Amber, I'm still friends with. My husband, I'm still friends with. Like, it's so crazy how many people we knew through Kitchen 24 that have just gone on to do incredible things with their lives. Start like way back and on a topic that I'm sure people will wonder immediately. And I know this story, but Elmo is not your birth name. Can you tell everybody where that name came from?
Yes, my real name is Christopher. That I got that nickname because when I started touring, I was 15 and I was the baby of the group. Everyone else was in their 20s, and there were multiple Chris's in our entourage, squad, whatever you want to call a rock and roll band, and and so every Chris got a nickname. And when we were thinking of nicknames, I don't know. Someone said something funny and my face turned red. They were like, "We're going to call you Elmo." I was like, "No, please don't call me that." And that's the reason why they started calling me that. And I was the youngest, and I was, that was it. It wasn't my decision. It was placed upon me by the 20-year-old gods that they were. Yeah, it's kind of funny when you think about being 15 and looking at a 22-year-old thinking that they are the oldest and wisest person in the world.
Oh, absolutely. That with my teachers all the time, like in high school, how, wow, these people have together, and then you think about a 30-year-old, just us trying to keep our shit together.
Just keeping it
Definitely puts
real.
it into perspective. Who were you on tour with when you were 15?
My band at the time was called Limit Point. Limit Point, punk rock band from Pasadena, California.
I've never looked it up, even though you've told me that story, and I'm going to do that. Can it be found on YouTube or
That's a good
Apple?
question. That was 1999, so I don't think there was a YouTube, but there was. Yeah, you know what? I don't know. I don't know. If so, I'm not getting paid for it. It was actually a really good band. Limit Point was a great band.
Leave it. And yeah,
Yeah, and also to tie into current times, or the guy Mikey was the lead singer of Limit Point, and he was the guy that named me Elmo. And here we are, 20 years later, literally 20 years later, and he is the designer for Jammcard, and he created the Jammcard logo.
no way.
Yeah, so we're still technically in a band because startups are bands.
Yes, they are, sir. Yes, they are. I was thinking back about some of my earlier memories with you. One of them was you guys playing jazz in Kitchen 24. We would like clear out the tables and Cinespace and all of the incredible nights that you people together, but also performed. For our listeners who don't already know, you are a drummer, one of the best that I know. No Pound is a cardio drumming class. It's been so cool to put power of drumming in the hands of thousands of people around the world without needing the actual skill of drumming. It is a very difficult skill, uh, one that you are incredibly good at. And it's been amazing to watch you throughout the years. And this is something I don't know about you. I'd love to hear more about your kind of earlier memories of drumming and what really pulled you in the direction of making it a career.
Yeah, I became addicted to drums when I was 10. All I wanted to do was play. I didn't have a drum set though. I only had like a pad, and I just beat the crap out of that pad for a full year because that was what my dad told me. We made a deal. He was like, if you play this pad every single day for a year, I'll get you a drum set in a year. And I was like, deal. And and that was really it. I don't know how or why the drums came to me. Besides, I do come from a musical family in general. There's no other drummers really, but I don't know. I just always loved the drums. My uncle got me like a plastic play school kit when I was 1, and I played that everywhere, supposedly according to my parents, and brought it everywhere. Yeah, and so by the time I was 10, I really wanted to play actual like a real drum kit after years of playing pots and pans and making, bootleg pots and pan kits and stuff. And I eventually got one when I was 11, and I just played it every single day. And by the time I was 15, I got my first touring opportunity, and I auditioned for it, and I got it. By far, I was like, I think the youngest person besides me that auditioned was probably 20. So I was much younger. And yeah, and I just kind of took that opportunity and ran. So it's probably the thing I'm most grateful for is that I just found something that I loved at such a young age without like consciously being like, I'm going to be a professional drummer. I mean, I just knew I was going to be. I was like, there is no backup plan. This is my favorite thing in the world to do. So therefore, if you just do something all the time, you're most likely going to get pretty good at it. And then, if you can just meet people and kind of grow with your talent, and it evolving into a profession is something that happens over time. And especially if you really want to try to make that happen. And then, I mean, it's really just been a long journey.
Did your parents ever, were they always just super supportive of what you wanted to do? I mean, I can imagine as a parent sending my kid off at the age of 15. Were they always supportive of you? Did they ever push back? And second part of that question is hard to fit in when you were 15 with a bunch of 20-year-olds. How did you kind of navigate that situation?
So my parents were always super supportive of my drumming. I mean, first of all, they allowed me to play drums in the house, which is which I'm
They are
assuming.
gods.
Oh man, I can only imagine those drums. Yeah, drums are loud. So they were, yeah, so they were super supportive to even allow that to happen. And then my dad and I, once I got my drum set, pretty sure from day one or day two, he brought in his keyboard and we started jamming. My dad always talks about how I would just come home from school every day and run into my dad's room and just be like, "You want to jam? You want to jam?" And and then they were also supportive when their 15-year-old son wanted to go on tour. My dad definitely was like, he saw that it was clearly my passion and it wasn't just a phase.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 15 and wanted to go on tour, and he helped. He even when I auditioned for that band, I lied and said I was 18 to get the audition. Luckily, I probably already had a beard at that point, being an Italian Jew. My mom was the one when I wanted to actually go on tour that cried, because part of me going on tour was me leaving high school.
Yeah.
You know, so I remember my mom like crying, but she ended up allowing it. But I think my dad was the one that was like pushing for, like, look, clearly the boy has passion. He loves it. And then also, my high school counselor supported the move, which I thought was probably the other main thing that actually made it happen for my mom to be okay with it.
Yeah.
Was she was like, "All right, let's look at this kid. Grades aren't so good. Doesn't really pay attention in class. You know, probably not going to be a scholar, but he loves drumming, and here's an opportunity, and so I got her blessing. So yes, they were supportive, and then was it hard to fit in being so much younger than everybody else in the band? Another thing where I got really lucky was those guys in the band. The two main guys were Mikey Sabatella and Brian Shaw, and they both became like big brothers to me,
Yeah.
and they were good influences for the most part. Like, they would drink and do things that most young 20s kids do, but they weren't bad influences.
Reckless.
Yeah, they were not reckless. They really cared about the band making it, and we were also a DIY band. So I actually learned a lot of my business skills in those years,
Yep.
because my whole thing is, that I learned, like, bands are one of the hardest things in the world to monetize. So I believe that if you can monetize a band, you can monetize anything.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of just kind of DIY, go hard, go all in, guerrilla marketing, straight up walking into malls and just trying to get people to listen to your music and become a fan, and stopping random people on the street. So I learned a lot of that in those days, beyond just drumming and, camaraderie and the kind of things you learn in being in a band, but also like business chops and like
Yeah.
DIY small business chops, essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, two things. One, I feel like in so many of my conversations on the podcast, this theme of a person, an elder, comes up in people's journeys. A teacher telling them they could do something, a counselor pushing them in one direction. It's so cool to hear that. And I think another theme that I have felt so strongly in my life is that school is so incredibly important. But I was the same way. My grades were okay, but I never felt really passionately about school. But in college, rowing, being a part of a team, when it comes to business and people and community, I think I learned more there than in any of the classrooms that I was in. So having that type of quote unquote schooling is just as important.
For sure.
So if you are a parent, whether it's sports or anything community based or leadership based, it's important to add that on, or allow your kids to be present there.
Yeah. So, I think, yeah, for the parents, listening in on this, let your kid go on their path if they know, if they're kind of starting to carve their own path,
Yeah,
let them do it.
absolutely.
I was very much on my own, doing my own thing, even when I was in high school playing drums or whatever. I was clearly on my own, path that never really stopped. I always had my own bands, or if I ended up, once I started playing for people as like a hired gun, I was still typically musical directing or leading. And then I ended up starting Jammcard to lead the entire music community and that whole thing. So I've kind of always been on my own.
You were self-motivated, which for a teenager, I mean, that you can't ask for anything more than that.
For sure.
Um, so going back and reminiscing a bit, and you've toured, you've played, you've collaborated with some incredible artists. I want to know top three career highlights pre-Jam Card. So before Jam Card.
Yes. One of them was I was playing with Skrillex at the time.
Really hope you'd say that.
I remember it was the 2-year anniversary of Camerata, which was the name of the event at Cinespace, and and I performed with Skrillex, and that was like a special night to me because I mean I was like what 24 at the time, and
Hmm.
so I it was special to me because my event, this weekly event that I started, that I thought was going to go for maximum 4 weeks because I had never thrown an event before, uh, was having its 2-year anniversary of doing it every week. So that was like a thing. And then also performing with Skrillex, who was exploding at the time, and feeling like I was riding the wave with him and being on this edge of dubstep, which no one had heard about, and kind of being riding that wave that he was
Yeah.
pioneering. So being a part of their wave is a very special thing as well. Where especially if someone is truly pioneering and making something new and creating a whole new scene or a genre or whatever it may be. So, being able to do that with him was really special. Him and I were also just like close buddies and
Yeah.
already at that point. And obviously he kept going. So playing Camerata was for our 2-year anniversary with Skrill was awesome. And I remember there was like a bunch of celebrities there that night, and it was like kind of like a turning point for me.
This is important for our history.
Yeah.
Quick backstory, and I didn't think you were going to say that night, but that's one of my top 10 music memories. It's actually the day that I met Amber Brule, and I
Yeah.
brought her there.
Really?
And yeah, it was the first time we had ever hung out, and she did makeup on this thing that I was a part of, and I was like, "Do you want to come?" And I ran the events at Cinespace for years before Pound, which is how you and I met. And that night, it just doesn't exist anymore. And what you created lives in like top 100 memories in my memory bank. It
Oh,
was
that's
so
awesome.
special. No, it
You were there. Of course you were there.
was,
What am
yeah,
I talking about? That's so great.
the Scromo
Skromo.
experience was
Yep.
just, I can remember it to this day. It was
That's
really
awesome.
special. So I'm so happy that you brought that up. So continue.
Yeah, I love that you were there. That's amazing. That was an awesome memory. And then another memory with Skrill wasn't even with playing with Skrill. It was like a year later. I started another person that I met through the Camerata Circle was Christina Perri. She started getting very successful. I became her drummer and then eventually her music director. And so about a year after this Skrillex story, we were playing Lollapalooza, and Christina was playing, and Skrillex was playing. He was playing at 5 o'clock, and we were playing at 6 o'clock on two different stages at Lollapalooza. So at like 4, I went over and I went to his dressing room and was hanging with him before, and kind of just like, dude, we're here. This is great. Like it's happening. We're all like coming up together. This is awesome. Look at your success. This is, great. So we were hanging out, and then he played. So I was on stage with him, but I could only stay for like 15 minutes because I had to go to the other stage and play with Christina. And I don't know if you've ever been to Lollapalooza, but it's too big in terms of how spread out it is. So I remember like watching him crush this like huge crowd, and then I got on my golf cart and had someone drive me from Skrill stage backstage all the way to Christina's stage, and then like getting off the golf cart, and then like my drum tech greeted me at the golf cart backstage, handed me my in ears, handed me my drumsticks, and I walked on stage like 30 seconds later with Christina. We finished, crowd was going crazy, and I could hear in the background Skrill playing on the other side of the festival. And I just thought that, and it was just such a cool moment,
Yeah.
of like, here I am with my friends. And Christina at the time was like, became like my little sister, and Skrill was like my little brother. It was just like a rad moment where all of a sudden here we are, Lollapalooza, but it still felt so small and so family.
That's pretty special.
And every one of these things in terms of like, your journey as a entrepreneur, whatever it is, whether you're a musician or you're starting a business, or whatever it is, it's like I feel like there's so many little small victories, and you have to celebrate them all. And a lot of the times the small victories are the
Yeah.
things that these little things happen, and that kind of prove to you that, oh, you can do this, who knows what's next.
Yeah.
And just being open to that, and going after it and being daring, and so I think, every little thing is like a little victory, is like just a step up on the ladder that you're climbing,
Yeah.
and just being confident in yourself that you're just going to keep going up one step at a time, and it doesn't need to be 10 steps at a time. And now here we are here, and at that point I had no idea I was going to start a tech company and try to, you know rethink the music industry.
People say life is short. I say life is long
Yeah.
because, and you are a great example of somebody who's squeezing all the juice out of life, but you can, it's not just about accomplishing, but the journey that you have and all those little wins and all those little milestones. There's so much to be lived. And how old are we right now, in our, mid 30s, and the the memories that you've experienced, the all of the things you've checked off, whether it's personal or professional. um, it's such a beautiful story already, and you have so much more to go. And I imagine there will be so much more to your story, which one of the biggest ingredients in your success is your positivity. And I don't know why I've never asked you about this in the past, but you radiate positivity. You've had ups and downs, you've had wins and losses, but you are always positive. Anybody that ever meets you will say that about you and your energy. And I know it's kind of a cliche thing to say, but it's not easy to always be positive and keep a smile on your face. You do such an incredible job. I would love to know where that comes from, and maybe some tips for our community on how you stay positive or filled with such light and good energy.
Well, thank you.
Of
Um,
course.
it's greatly appreciated. I think that would be one of the other things that I'm grateful for, is that I feel like I'm just kind of wired this way. I was always happy, even as a young kid. I don't know what it is, if I just let it kind of bounce off me, and not take anything too personal. But I've just kind of always been happy, especially once my drumming became a thing, even at that young age. Like I always felt lucky, and I've always just been super grateful, and, to make a living as a drummer, at that point, and now to be making a living off my own, company that,
Yeah.
starts as an idea and you create something with, and if I think about like, tips for happiness, or tips, to live a prosperous life or whatever, if I were to analyze my own life and kind of give the advice that I've probably told myself subconsciously without even realizing it, is like, number one, create the world you want to live in, and kind of play by your own rules, and be authentic, know what you're good at, do those things, know what you enjoy, analyze that, and have that in your life daily.
And then you start attracting. I think
Yeah.
that's like when I look at you, I'm like, how could that guy not be successful? Because you attract what you are, and people want to be around you. They want to be a part of that. There's a lot of like happiness and joy in the music industry, but there's a lot of darkness and shittiness, for the lack of better
For sure.
words, just because of the business of music. And um, yeah, I think it's important, and finding what you are truly passionate about and joyful doing is probably a large part of it. Inspiring to watch, but also be a part of. And I think that's what I always saw with you with Ada and now Jammcard. It's people want to be a part of it because there is not a lot of like true authentic joy in any industry these
Mhm.
days, because things
Yeah.
have become such a machine, which I'll
Especially right now, that's the hardest part of right now for me, I think, with the pandemic and living in it and trying to, trying to get through it and also trying to be your best self, is very challenging right
yeah,
now. Especially if you're not allowed to do the things that are what make you happy and what make you you or are your sense of identity,
yep.
that's been the hardest thing for me. Like, I mean, I haven't jammed or thrown a massive jam session. As you know, I like throwing the biggest jam sessions physically possible. and, uh, and I haven't done that
Over a year.
in now a year. Yeah. The last real physical tons of people jam was a year ago, just 2 days ago. I got the reminder and I was like, oh no. Um, I think it was in August of this last year when I realized I feel like not in touch with my identity. That's the feelings that I'm having,
Yeah.
because even for all those years before Jamcard or whatever, I would always be jamming with people, even if I was 11 and it was just me and my dad, or if I'm 35 and it's me and all my favorite musicians in the world. And I think that was probably a huge part of my continual happiness, was doing that at the end of the day or whenever I would. And that's been gone for this whole year now.
I can absolutely relate, and I think that greatest thing for me in the last couple months is just this gut feeling that this isn't our future. People are going to run back to each other, whether
Mhm.
it's in jam sessions or classes, because that's where we find inspiration. I think everybody, whether you're a professional musician or a fitness instructor or have a desk job, like being together is truly what creates that spark. And the
Yeah.
lack of that spark has been pretty difficult pill to swallow in this, pandemic. Before we jump into Jam Card, because I want to talk about it, there's one more thing that I want to discuss, and it's one of the things that I admire most about you, um, amongst many things. It's your relationship with your family and your parents. And if I'm being totally honest, it's just something I don't see with a lot of men. How do I create a son like that? um, but seriously, I'd love to hear just more about your family and how family became so important to you.
We should probably, I guess we should get my mom on the podcast, or I
A
can,
100%.
or I'll just put you in touch with her. Both my mom and my dad gave me a ton of love, always. I mean, I don't think there never was a time when they didn't. Even, my mom and I never really got in fights, but my dad and I would, because we're very similar. So I don't know. I guess they gave me freedom while
Yeah.
also giving me a lot of love, and support and just believing in me. They always believed in me pre becoming a drummer that actually got paid to be a drummer, or starting a company, and they still do now. I think now they're kind of just like shocked. Like they're just like, whoa. But
Jam card. You've spent the last couple of years building an incredible company, Jamcard, which is known as the Music Professionals Network. Just tell our community more about the app and the inspiration behind it.
yeah. So the Jamcard app is a Well, it started as a invite only social network for all vetted professionals, music professionals. Kind of like a LinkedIn for the music industry was, what press would call us. But it was went far deeper than that. But
Hmm.
started as like private social network for vetted music pros, and now has evolved into a marketplace of all the vetted music pros for you to be able to book for services. And so the two main problems that I wanted to solve, just to boil it down, was number one, this is a freelance industry, but there's no freelance network. So I wanted to create that. Like myself as a drummer, I'm hired from 15 different people a year, but then also myself as a drummer, I hire 30 people a year. So and it's entirely a word of mouth industry, even at the very top, from the very top to college and hobbyists, whatever it's it's entirely word of mouth. So I really wanted to fix that and make that solution. And so that was what we tackled with the social network, the first version of the product. And then now with the marketplace with Jammcard Booking, we're going after payments because musicians spend 50% of their time chasing money that's owed to them. And so it's hard enough to get a gig that pays, and then when you do, you have to chase the money even after the work is done. You know, so just not fair.
So you were a professional musician. You toured. What was it like transitioning from that to being a business owner? I'm sure there's a lot of similarities, but running a business, being an entrepreneur, essentially doing it on your own in the beginning,
Mhm.
what was that like? I know.
Yeah, transition was for sure the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, uh, for sure. Especially because when I was making my living as a drummer, I never considered it work.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I was never like, "Oh, I have to go to work because I'm in the studio all day today," or, "Oh, I have to go to work because I'm on tour and I'm playing a show tonight," or whatever. Like, I always kind of thought I was like, "This is a joke that I'm getting paid to do this," like, I never felt like I had a job for so many years, and I always loved what I was doing. Starting Jam Card, my dad, who's also an entrepreneur, musician, told me, you got to quit touring and you got to quit making records and you got to go all in because starting Jam Card is going to be more work than you ever imagined. And
Yep.
he was right. So, so I quit touring and I quit making records and I went all in on trying to figure out how to make a tech startup. But I had zero friends in tech. I had zero friends that were investors. I had no friends that were, engineers or product people or anything
Mhm.
so I had a massive network of musicians, which is, the I guess you can call it the customers of what I wanted to build. And, but I didn't know how to do that. And so I spent 3 years going through multiple tech teams, multiple designers, raised my first money, learned a lot, but kept failing, just kept falling right on the pavement. Couldn't get a product done, couldn't get a product out that I was happy with. Everything that we were making just wasn't it. It wasn't what I was trying to make, and it was hard because I didn't know how to talk to the engineers. I didn't know how to manage engineers, that's for sure. I definitely They probably for sure did not respect me as a founder or a CEO. They respected me as a musician, but not as a CEO who's going to run this company. Those 3 years were really, really, really hard. Um, I went from what I would consider what felt like an easy life, which was making money touring, to what was the hardest life ever, which was, grinding 16 hours a day, trying to figure out how to do a startup, going all in, putting all of your savings into it, all of your everything, which I did. And just like having no small victories,
Yeah.
oh, just kept, running into walls.
Ready listening? 3 years. 3 years of
Yeah.
small victories. Like that's huge. What kept you in it? What in your mind or your heart was like, nope, this is going to work at some point. This is going to work.
I think I kind of took the same approach as when I was 12 and playing drums and being like, I'm going to make, I'm going to be a drummer, I'm going
Mhm.
to get paid for this. No backup plan, 15, 16, whatever. I think it was kind of the same thing. I was like, I'm going to do Jamcard. Like it is going to
Yep.
work.
Yep.
It may take a long time, but I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to let running out of money stop me. I'm not
Yep.
going to let bad partners or employees, I'm not going to let, anything that gets thrown at you as a founder, and I think I proved to myself how resilient I am,
Mhm.
and definitely proved to you know my early investors, and so yeah, I think it just kind of proved to myself. I was like, man, maybe I am supposed to be a founder. Maybe because I am an entrepreneur, and then, like I said, back to small victories, and things happened throughout that journey that made me realize, oh yeah, I didn't need to be a college grad in order to do this, or I don't need to be a rich kid or have someone with
I mean, there's
money.
imposter syndrome, I've
Yeah,
dealt with it all, but I think you just have to dig your heels in and believe in yourself, when no one else does, and, it's huge, and it's been really incredible, watching your journey because as a founder myself, there's so many days where you're like, what am I doing? How do I get to the next step? And seeing other people who just make it work, it keeps you going.
and something to chime uh, in those 3 hard years. Do you know who I was watching grow her business?
No.
You.
Oh,
you know, like you were a huge inspiration to me then, because you also, were, I mean, we were peers at the restaurant. We
yeah.
were, and it was kind of funny because here we were at Cinespace, you're helping throw the events, I'm throwing the events, and then now we're both making side cash, hustling as waiters. Um, and then, I mean, I freaking watched you start Pound. I introduced you to Christina and watched that
Yeah.
happen,
Yep.
watched you really take an idea and run with it, and build this whole and ecosystem that you have built now today. But I mean, but you've now, I mean, now you're several years into it being an established thing. Like I remember in those first few years of me not having any successes with Jamcard, watching you just build Pound and it just like grow, push, 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 like and watching you just like, I'm like, she's on the news. What? No,
I know. No, honestly, it was those days at Cinespace watching bands play and watching people respond to music and knowing that I could never be that, but I loved the feeling of drumming and the release that it gave you and watching people just let music wash them over and everything else just disappear. It was that magic that I I knew everybody wanted to be a part of, and that's what you get to feel in Pound. It's yeah, you're not, like, on the stage, but you kind of feel like you are. Like, it's crazy, and I never would have thought that before Pound and before experiencing it and watching people take it, but that is the feeling it gives you. I and thousands of people who take it like will never get to be on stage listening to Skrillex like a mile away, but it gives you that power, and it kind of gives you that release that um, I don't know. It's pretty cool. And
yeah.
you get to, I mean, you are incredible at it and you have a skill that not many people will accomplish. But it's been really beautiful to be like, have that tiny bit of it through Pound and feel like a little bit of a rock star through Pound.
I mean, I mean, when you're leading those classes, you're the lead singer or the lead drummer, as I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Um, like it's performance, yeah. And I think even for the people in the class, it's like you're a part of a band, you know.
Yeah. No, that's what we say. As instructors, we say we're the audience and the people who come to your class are the rock stars,
Oh,
because
nice.
it is giving them that feeling. And music does that for people. And movement and quote unquote working out isn't something that comes easy to people. It felt like, certainly felt like a chore for me. And so when you can flip that and make it feel like something else, it's pretty powerful. Which
Definitely.
brings me to the jams that you created and that authentic experience. And it's kind of cliche, but 10 years ago at Cinespace, bringing bands together on a weekly basis, that to me felt like a norm. I lived at Cinespace, and you had Sunday nights, but on Tuesday nights it was R&B, and every night of the week was a different genre of music. And I feel like 10 years plus later, it's more superficial. It's highly curated. It's money and goal driven. It's how do we get influencers here? And being able to go to something like a jam, which in our current state, maybe not in the pandemic, but pre pandemic, that was beautiful. And you created that. How much of creating Jammcard was to create a community for people, and how much of it was to create a platform that supported musicians, and how do you bring all these people together in the most it's organized, like there's 30 musicians tapping in and out of this circle, if I can create a visual for what a jam is, creating beautiful music, coming together, and it's just magic. Like how did that all come about?
You could call it structured improvisation, or you could call it structured chaos. Um,
I like structured chaos.
I think the crazy thing about the Jam, which I guess to explain it for anyone listening who doesn't know what the Jam is, it's the Jam Card members only live music event, where we set everyone up. All the performers are in a circle facing in towards each other, so there's no lead anything. Like the singer, the drummer, everyone's like got it's all equal, and the audience is directly on top of them, like right behind them, right? So you're really in it, and the audience is mostly entirely people that could or will jump up and play, and because we vet the whole audience, and it's crazy because it's like to make the jam good is like catching lightning in a bottle, because
Hmm.
you have 10 or 12 or 15 people performing at once through while improvising, and with 50 people rotating in and out at any given moment. It's really hard to make that good, and not just make it sound like noise, or like, as I say, you don't want to walk in and have it sound like you're in Guitar Center all of a sudden. So it's like catching lightning in a bottle, but it's also crazy because we've now done, I forgot the exact number. Let's say I think we've done 28 jams, and every single one is a home run. Like there
Yeah.
hasn't been a single dud, not even a moment of a dud in the 3 hour show, and so that's kind of crazy. And so I feel like there actually is a recipe there, which is you know constantly evolving. You get the right people in a room and let them be them.
Yes. I was going to say that you created a community and an environment that you literally put instruments in front of people and you say there are no rules. You don't have to wear this. You don't have to look like that. You don't have to be this age or that age. Just do what you do and what you love. And you don't really have to do much more than that. And I, A, we find that in Pound too. It's like the power of just letting people be who they truly are. Like, that's it. Like, you don't need to do much past that, because that environment doesn't really exist that much anymore. Um,
Hmm.
and what you created back in the day. And that's something I experienced on a daily basis. It doesn't feel like it exists that much more. So when you go to a jam, you're like, oh my God, I'm sneaking into the past, or I'm
Mhm.
experiencing something that doesn't exist anymore. And I don't know
Yeah,
if other people feel that way, but I certainly do.
that's a good summary of it. I think one thing that I've heard in common from the musicians in the room, the professionals, is saying like, "Oh, this reminds me why we do this,
Yep.
why we're even in this," which you forget when you're in the business side of the music business. You can forget why you even are there in the first place and why you started
Absolutely.
doing this. And I think the Jam's kind of like a reminder because it's super authentic, it's super raw, and and it's just talent, and it's a conversation through music with with who knows. You never know who's going to jump up.
Yep.
Even I have a good idea, but I'm not exactly positive. Like I'll be like, well, out of these 400 people that are here, I'm pretty sure these 20 are going to play first, and then these 60 out of these 60 or 100, maybe 30 of them are going to jump up. Probably these people, and then I do my best to kind of be the ringleader and like try to throw people in or kind of be like, hey, get in here, or like pull someone out and kind of help structure it. But it's malleable, and it's like it's really a living thing that you're never going to see twice.
Yep.
And that's what makes it so special. And so yeah, and it's the number one thing that I miss from the COVID sitch, you
Yeah.
know, is the
Same.
jam and just the community. Also, that's the other thing, and I'm sure this is the same with Pound, but Jammcard is obviously a digital community, but the Jam is what brings you all together and makes it and shows how human it really is,
Yeah, I was
and
gonna ask if it without the Jam, do you think Jamcard would have been as successful?
I don't think so. I don't
Yeah.
think so. I think the Jam, uh, it became like our
It's a
marketing.
physical representation of
Yes,
what
that's a
you
good.
do and why you do it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. It shows the strength of Jamcard.
Yeah.
Like not just and not Jamcard just being a vessel of the community. And so yeah, I think a lot of people, if you ask them how they even hear about Jamcard, it's a lot of them will say like, I saw the video of the Jam on Instagram. And was like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, and because those videos have hit millions of people, and then so if you're like, wait, what What is that? And then you see Jam, you're like, well, it's Jamcard, and that's what leads you.
Yep.
So not that it was ever intended to be the carrot. It never was. Like, but it just kind of became that in and of itself from the beginning, from like the first one. You know,
No,
uh,
I've been to like half of them, so
yeah,
I
you
can
have.
I understand, and I think that if anybody listening wants to create something or a product or a business, you have to know the power of community and physical presence and connection, and authentic connection. And if there's a second lesson to be learned, I think in life it's organized chaos. You will try so hard to control environments and experiences that they become stale and not
Yeah,
exciting and not
yeah,
magical. And so, you put a little bit of structure to something, but you give it freedom. I feel like that's come up a lot in our conversation, and maybe that's like the biggest thing your parents or your upbringing gave you is just like the freedom to
yeah,
do and be what you wanted, and it shows up everywhere in your life. I think that's incredible. And going back to the musicians, the people, the face of your company, I think, so many industries have been so negatively affected by COVID, the fitness industry, the music industry, millions of musicians around the globe and employees of the music industry have lost their jobs. I know a ton of people, thousands of people. Do you think that there's any silver lining in what has happened? Have you seen a silver lining?
Yes, I think there are many silver linings. Um, and just in being specifically related to the music industry, some of the people that have been affected the most in the music industry are the agencies. A lot of the agencies have closed down or laid off 90% of their staff.
Hmm.
And even though that sucks for the 90% of the staff that got laid off temporarily, I think in the long term, it's actually better for them because it's going to shake up what used to just be four agencies running the industry is now going to become three agencies running 50% of it, and the other 50% is all these new boutique agencies
Hmm.
that are already forming and are going to continue to start forming. So I think, as you know, with anything as tragic or as world altering as this has been, you get innovation, and it's going to be the people of the music industry that create the new music industry. You know,
Yep.
and I also think that it's actually shaking up the power, even though the power may have the most power currently because they already did, and now in the COVIDness it's happening. But independent music is getting bigger than ever. There's been 25% growth in independent music year over year, and that's gonna rise even higher. And there's more and more uh, services, music tech companies coming out that are innovating and helping all the independent artists that make it so you don't need to be signed to a label for any reason, and putting it in the hands of you to be able to do whatever you want and market whatever you want and create and track and everything else. Um, so I think there is a big silver lining. And the other thing that I think is just a big silver lining in terms of like the people is I feel that we kind of just were taking advantage of the comfortable lives that so many of us were living, you
Hmm.
know, and also not appreciating things like going to a concert, or going to a festival or going to a restaurant or going to a fitness class, and I think when it comes back, we're definitely going to have a sense of gratitude that we didn't have before. I hope that it lasts. I hope people don't forget. But I think if they don't forget, and now we have this perspective of like, wow, even the simple things. I love going to Pound on Saturdays. Oh, I go to a concert. I get to go to this concert next week, or those little things that you thought of just as like, I like this or whatever, but you didn't realize like, oh wow, these are fundamental things to my life and my happiness. And how much you miss them. So I think there should be just an elevated world in general when we do come back from this.
We all going to the movies, going to a concert, these were just things that we could do. And a lot of it probably felt, I don't know what, like old worldly, if you
Mhm.
will. And I said at the beginning of all this, I was like, well, we're in for it. Everything's going to go digital. There's going to be digital concerts, and people have been innovative and creative through it all, bringing and keeping it alive. But I have this same feeling in the last couple of months of, oh my God, we're going to get to go back with a new sense of hope and hopefully gratitude, like you said, and look at these things in a different way,
Yeah, yeah,
and not have lost them. I think that's what my fear was in the beginning.
yeah.
Oh my God, we've lost all of this, but I don't think that's the case. Last question. I had like so many more that I didn't get to ask because I feel like we probably would just be here for hours. Um,
I'll start giving shorter answers. Just bam, bam.
um, you always have good music recommendations, and I've been listening to a lot of nursery rhymes lately. So, give me and us three artists to look out for, to listen to, ones that we might not know of.
Oh God, you put me on the spot.
I know, I
Um, um, okay, so first of all, Jacob Collier. If you're not already listening to Jacob
know.
Collier, he's nominated for best album of the year at the Grammys, which is awesome. Great young artist. Super talented. Oh Lord, what have I been listening to? There's this great new artist called NPR's Podcasts. No, I'm just kidding. It's like, what have I been listening to?
There might be one, and you also introduced me to how what
Oh, Trap Jazz.
Trap Jazz. Yeah,
Trap Jazz is awesome. Chica is amazing. She's also nominated for Best New Artist, which is really great. Um, I have been listening to a lot of Latin music. I've been listening to like Bad Bunny and Pitbull.
surprise.
Yeah, surprise. Um, I've been listening to. Yeah, I guess there's. I've been listening to a lot of Terrace Martin. He put out 12 records in 2020, including a record called "The Dinner Party" with him and Robert Glasper and Kamasi Washington. That one's really, really, really awesome.
Wait, what book are you reading since you're reading?
Oh, I'm currently reading Shoe Dog, which is Phil Knight, the creator of Nike. Yep, that one's awesome. I just finished Atomic Habits, also a really great book.
Last but not least, what is your hope in the next 5 to 10 years for Jammcard and Jam Jam and the community in general?
I hope that Jamcard can help create a whole new, um, ecosystem that is the musician industry, an industry where musicians are at the top, not at the bottom. And that's one thing, that's what we're developing and we're pushing towards. And where I hope there's more independent musicians than ever, and I hope the Jam Card can facilitate and help them make money and organize their money and collect their money, um, and just make their lives easier in general, their daily business life, all the way to their creative life. And that's one thing that we're after. And I hope the Jam Jam.
Come back.
It's so. I mean, you know me. I'm very much the person that is like, I just start building things. I don't tell anybody until it's announced. I'm never like coming next week or even coming tomorrow. It's now. It's like I just surprise. So I actually I have a lot of Jam Card's future and the Jam Jam's future I'm building right now, and I feel it becoming a physical, tangible thing. I know where I want it to go. I'm pushing it there. Of course, you never end up exactly where you want, or not even where you want, but where you think it was going.
Yeah.
Right. You can still, even though it's like, oh, this isn't where I thought, but you can still have it be what you now want, even though it wasn't what you originally thought you wanted.
As I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually turns out better than I thought. Thank you, Elmo, for spending your time with us today. And I know the community will love this conversation because your story is inspiring, and you are, and all of our history and our past. And I can't wait to see what the future brings with Jamcard, and I cannot wait to be at the very first post-COVID jam session because I cannot imagine the magic that will happen there.
Ooh, let's go.
Right?
I have the first and the second one set, by the way, just so you know.
Okay, I'm excited already.
I'll tell you offline if you want. But yeah, no, I thank you for having me. I love you, Kirsten. I've watched you grow, and I'm just so damn proud of you.
Oh, the feeling is mutual. Love you too.
I want to meet your baby.
Soon.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Big Green Couch. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on either iTunes or Spotify, and to follow us on Instagram at The Big Green Couch.